Johannesburg was built upward. From a distance, it still looks intact. A skyline that suggests order, wealth, and control. But cities are not judged by how they look from far away. They are judged by what happens inside. Behind some of these walls, the law has retreated. Ownership has become meaningless. And authority exists only in name. These buildings were not destroyed by war. They were left behind, vacated quietly, neglected slowly, then taken. They are called hijacked buildings.
There are so many house hijackings, buildings, businesses, hijackings that are taken over by a few bad apples, and they are blatant criminals, but they are syndicates and they are organized crime criminals.
Today, people live here, hundreds at a time, sometimes thousands across a single city block. There is electricity, but the bills are never paid. Water is stolen too, and one thing is certain, rent must be paid. Not to the owner, not to the city, but to the hijackers. If anyone dares to challenge these hijackers, they have a death wish. These buildings exist in a strange space, too solid to ignore, too dangerous to enter, too complicated to fix. They are not hidden. They stand in the heart of South Africa's biggest cities, Johannesburg, Durban, Pretoria, visible to everyone, owned by no one who can enforce it. This documentary is not about ruins. It is about buildings that still stand, about what happens when governance withdraws and something else moves in. This is the story of South Africa's hijacked buildings. In South Africa, a hijacked building is not seized in a single moment. There is no dramatic takeover. Instead, it happens gradually. A building becomes vacant. The owner stops maintaining it. Municipal bills go unpaid. Security disappears. Then people move in, at first informally, later systematically. Eventually, control shifts. Access is regulated. Rooms are rented. Money is collected. The original owner loses physical control, even if they still own the title deed. This phenomenon has been documented since the late 1990s, particularly in Johannesburg's inner city and later in Durban and Pretoria. Urban researchers, the city of Johannesburg, and South African courts all use the same term: hijacked. Hijacked buildings did not appear by accident. They are the product of history. After apartheid ended, South African cities changed fast. Businesses left inner cities for suburbs like Sandton, Umhlanga, and Brooklyn. Office blocks emptied. Property values dropped. At the same time, cities experienced a surge in urban migration, both internal and cross-border. The demand for affordable housing exploded, but formal housing supply did not. By the early 2000s, Johannesburg alone faced a housing backlog running into the hundreds of thousands. Vacant buildings became pressure points, and pressure creates opportunity. Hijacked buildings are often framed as criminal problems, but they are also symptoms of housing shortages, of inequality, of administrative collapse. Crime filled a vacuum left by the state, and once established, it became difficult to remove. Across South Africa's major cities, investigations conducted by municipalities, housing researchers, and inner-city advocacy organizations have repeatedly documented that hijacked buildings do not emerge through chaos, but through a recognizable and deliberate process. It begins with identification. Buildings that become targets are rarely random. They are usually properties where ownership is distant, disputed, or effectively absent. Office blocks owned by companies that have gone into liquidation, residential buildings whose landlords have died, emigrated, or stopped responding, structures burdened by unpaid municipal bills, cut services, and years of physical neglect. These buildings sit in a legal grey zone, visible yet unattended, and that vulnerability is noticed. The second stage is entry. Access is rarely forced in a dramatic way. A broken side door that is never repaired. A security guard whose wages stopped months ago. A caretaker who still has keys, but no authority. Sometimes access is gained through bribery, sometimes through deception, sometimes simply because no one is left to say no. Once inside, occupation starts quietly. A few rooms, a single floor, temporary at first, then permanent. The third stage is consolidation. As more people move in, informal authority begins to form. Individuals or groups position themselves as organizers, protectors, or managers. They refer to themselves as caretakers, committees, or representatives of residents. Control of entrances becomes central. Who enters, who stays, who leaves. Locks are installed, keys are restricted, rules are announced, often verbally, rarely in writing. At this point, the building stops being merely occupied and starts being governed. The final stage is monetization. Rent is introduced, usually under the justification of maintenance or security. Payments are demanded in cash on a weekly or monthly basis. No receipts are issued, no contracts exist, no rights are guaranteed. Additional fees soon follow, charges for electricity connections, fees for water access, payments for protection from eviction, real or imagined. By the time this stage is reached, physical control has shifted completely. The rightful owner may still exist on paper. The municipality may still claim jurisdiction. But inside the building, authority now belongs to those who control access, collect money, and enforce compliance. This is the moment when a building becomes, in every practical sense, hijacked. Not seized by force, but taken through absence, delay, and silence. Hijacked buildings operate as informal economies. Residents pay weekly or monthly rent. Additional fees are charged for electricity connections, water access, or security. Electricity is usually stolen from municipal lines. Water is illegally rerouted. Fire safety systems do not exist. In some buildings, investigators have documented hundreds of residents generating tens of thousands of rand per month, entirely outside the formal system. This money does not go to maintenance, or safety, or taxes. It goes upward to controllers who often manage multiple buildings. Some have been linked to organized crime. Others operate openly, protected by fear. The people living in hijacked buildings are not a single group. They include South Africans, documented migrants, undocumented migrants, families, single workers, children. Most earn low or irregular incomes. For them, hijacked buildings offer one critical thing: proximity, close to jobs, close to transport, close to survival. Formal housing is often too expensive or too far away. Leaving is not simple, because outside these buildings, there is nowhere to go. The danger is not theoretical, it is documented. South African emergency services have repeatedly warned that hijacked buildings are extreme fire risks. Overcrowding, open flames, illegal wiring, blocked exits. In August 2023, a fire tore through a hijacked building in central Johannesburg. Dozens of people died. Investigations confirmed what had been known for years. The building had no legal electricity, no functioning fire systems, no enforceable oversight. The tragedy was not unexpected, it was inevitable. Removing people from a hijacked building is not simple. South African law requires due process. Owners must prove ownership, courts must issue eviction orders, alternative accommodation must be considered. But many buildings are legally tangled. Owners died, companies dissolved, title deeds disputed. In some cases, municipalities themselves owe millions in unpaid service charges on these properties. The law moves slowly. Hijackers do not. Official reports have acknowledged another problem: corruption. Investigations in Johannesburg revealed cases where officials ignored hijackings, delayed enforcement, or failed to act on known dangers. In some instances, city-owned buildings were hijacked. In others, officials were accused of turning a blind eye. When governance collapses, hijacking becomes sustainable. Reclaiming a hijacked building is expensive. Legal action, security, evictions, repairs, outstanding municipal debt. For many owners, the cost exceeds the value. So they abandon the property, not officially, but practically. This is how cities lose buildings without ever selling them. When evictions do happen, they raise another question. Where do people go? Courts have ruled that mass evictions without alternative accommodation are unconstitutional. Cities are trapped between safety and humanity. Evict and create homelessness. Do nothing and risk mass death. There is no clean solution, only delayed consequences. Some buildings have been recovered, through court orders, through city intervention, through partnerships with housing organizations. But these cases are rare. They require money, political will, and long-term planning. Without that, hijacked buildings remain the default outcome. South Africa did not lose these buildings overnight. They were lost slowly, quietly. Floor by floor, hijacked buildings are not invisible. They stand in plain sight, a reminder that cities are not just built with concrete, but maintained with governance. When that disappears, something else moves in.